Welcome to From Click to Client, where we transform a confusing message into a clear, compelling story that sells. I'm your host, Kris Jones, StoryBrand marketing expert. I'm here to help you attract more dream clients with the power of story. Lee Taylor, thank you for joining me today on the podcast. I am so excited to have you here and also to talk to a fellow StoryBrander. Are you a StoryBrand coach, or are you a...
No, no, they have still not accepted me as an unofficial StoryBrand. I think just a fanboy ambassador. I think there should be some kind of certification for your website. I'm not a guide, but I pretend to be one like half of the time. So no, I just huge fan. Been to the workshop, been to the live workshop back. I was thinking like 7 years ago. It's been a long time.
Okay.
So just followed along and just have loved the framework.
Amazing, amazing. So tell me a little bit about what you do and what problem you solve.
Yeah, so I help leaders and their teams create role clarity. And so the problem I solve is, a lot of business owners that I talk to feel frustrated that their team's not as productive or profitable as they think they should be. And what I often say is they feel like they work hard, but they're still not always focused on those few things that are most important. And so the owner feels frustrated. And so I help them not start micromanaging, but how to use clarity to really communicate ownership and expectations in a way that frees up the leader to run their business and also frees up their team to take responsibility and really thrive in their roles. And so, worked with small businesses, nonprofits doing that.
And do you ever work with companies that have really, really tiny teams, or is this most helpful for larger teams?
No, actually, my sweet spot has been like 5 to 20 people, and it goes closer. I've done some teams that are more 30 or 40, but that's really the sweet spot of what I do. Because a lot of times what I see is coming in and somebody who doesn't have an HR department and all the processes that go along. Like, how do we help a small business leader with 3 to 10 employees get the best of that, communicate the ownership, the questions that really matter, without building out huge systems and processes like HR that they think that they have to have, but they never can keep up with. So mine is all about how do we simplify and answer the few questions that you have to answer for these people to take ownership.
Right. And when you get on a call with a potential client, what are they complaining to you about?
You know, it is different for each one, but I think the kind of themes that come across are it's a business owner that feels overwhelmed. They're trying to do it all, trying to keep up with everything. I think a lot of times the business has outgrown their capacity to do that. And so, I thought it would, and I did think it would be that maybe people weren't working hard, but that's what's amazing is so many times I've got great people. It's just how do I get them, focused on the right things, making sure they're doing the few things that are most critical. And so, those are the most common things. It is a leader they just feel burned out, worn out with trying to do it all. And you listen to so many podcasts, so many great management things out there, and to try to manage a small business, 5 to 10 people, like someone who has several hundred employees and they're full-time managers, it's just a very different game. And so how do you build something that helps them in their world, actually function?
Mm. And tell me some aha moments that you've had around role clarity. Like, how did you end up doing this work specifically?
Yeah, so I always laugh. Like, this is one of those things where I've done a lot of classic leadership stuff. So vision, goals, strategy, that type of thing. And what I would see happening was I'd go with these teams and I was helping them choose goals. And you would hear them like pick the goals that they were focused on, like different individuals on the team. And I would even talk to a leader afterwards and they're like, this is not the most important thing. They're like, we should start a podcast or we should start doing just these left field, these kind of crazy things. And so I was like, how do I help people pick better goals? And so I would ask them, okay, can we look at what their roles are, whatever. And honestly, for most of them, they had nothing besides maybe a job description they had stole off of the internet and posted somewhere to hire the job. And so from there, it was just, so what if we just for me, it's like, what questions do I need them to answer so that they can get clear on their vision, clear on their goals? And this was really a workshop exercise that I had done, and it just resonated so well because what happened was when someone sees their entire job, I say entire job, it speaks to most of their job on one page. It's just this light bulb moment where one for the boss, like, yes, that's what I need them to do, but also for the team member where they go, oh, I can see what it looks like to win. And it's not a 2-page job description. It's not this somebody knocking on my door, Tuesday morning saying, hey, I think we should do, this crazy idea. It's like, you've clarified for me. So those have been the biggest light bulb moments. And it's just the light bulb of like, we live in a world and a lot of really good teams. The lack of clarity about the roles is pretty shocking to me. I should know that because I was a leader of big teams, and the people who worked for me would have said the exact same thing in those days. So those have always been the biggest moment. That when they look at that one page, especially the skeptics, they're like, "You can't do this on one page," and they see it and they go, "Yep, that's that. If they did that, I would be pretty fired up." And so that's always my favorite moment.
Right. So everybody has kind of a touchstone that they can always go back
Mhm.
to and ask, is what I'm doing or is what I'm being asked to do, how does that relate to this one page
Yeah,
document around what I'm doing? And if it doesn't align, then you have clarity that that's not the thing that you should be
yeah,
doing, right? You
yeah,
get back to home base. Tell me, a lot of companies feel like they need mission, vision, values, and a lot of this internal stuff. And I don't want to say I'm not a believer in that. Like I think much of that is really good, but now that you're pretty fluent in StoryBrand, what are some of the things that you've been able to let go of, right? Like a lot of clients come to me and they go, I need it, we need a tagline, like Nike's just do it. Like we need something like that. And often I'll say, well, we can work on that and we can get you like a clever tagline, but is it really going to help you? Is that the best use of your time? The reason taglines like just do it work is because they have millions and millions of dollars in advertising and branding to back that up versus like typically what I'll do is I'll guide my clients to focusing on a one-liner because a one-liner actually encapsulates the problem that you solve and shows exactly how you can help your clients in a one or two sentence statement. It's longer than a tagline, but it's so much more effective.
yeah,
So tell me, kind of, once you found StoryBrand,
yeah.
were you able to kind of audit or filter out some of those internal activities that you were doing?
Yeah, I think what drew me to StoryBrand from the beginning is by nature, I I just love ideas, and so I'm always adding to the plate. That's never a problem. Is coming up with more. And so when I saw StoryBrand, and it's like just this format, this framework, it for me it just resonated because it continually gave me these like boundaries, and also just reminded me of like the simplicity. And that's probably what I love about almost every element of what flows out of StoryBrand is the simplicity of the story, the character, the one liner, all of those things because they force me they force me to get clear and to make sure like I know. And so yeah, I have much like you, and I like doing vision work and those kind of things. Um, for me, they really can become a distractor as opposed to like what are the answers that I have to have? Like what are the what are the questions that people have about what I'm doing, about the problems they have, and then how I can solve them, and trying to just pare that down as much as possible. So yeah, I definitely at this point my focus is on kind of what you're saying. Although the one liner is kind of a the number of times I've tried to get the one liner down is too numerous to even be said. Um, but I love that because I think it actually connects to a person more than some just quick, website statement that I put on there.
Right.
So
Can you share an example of a team doing the right things instead of doing more things?
yeah, I mean, it's just there's so many there. But a lot of times, a lot of times when you're looking at, I'm thinking about now, what would be the most common ones? I think this happens a lot too. It is like my favorite ones are marketing or social media, whatever. Is somebody in a small business, they've got to be hiring. We got to be on social media, so they don't know it, they don't love it,
Right.
whatever. So of course, you go hire somebody who's young. It's like, hey, we got to be posting on social media, and so from there, they hire somebody, and the person does a lot. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, but what I place a lot of times like it's just without purpose. And so what happens is a lot of times there is I'll see this is where the lack of clarity comes in is the business owner 3 months later, 6 months later goes like, we're not seeing any benefit from this. I'm not seeing any leads come in. And the other person's like, well, we got a lot of content out there, having a lot of fun stuff, whatever it may be. And what I will talk to them about is like, what you really wanted was you really cared was like, you're responsible for generating new leads for the business. And so, but that conversation happens 6 months later. A lot of times there's miscommunication, there's frustration, lots of that person actually ends up not working there and they go to the next person.
Right.
And so that's when I say the few things, it's just in almost every role. Somebody's in sales, if somebody's working in marketing, if they're doing customers, when you get down to say, what are the few things that if they did them, that person's calling you back 3 months from now to do other work for you. That's the thing. What's so funny is like that's what they're not focused on, but they know if you will dig in there and say, what would they be doing that would just like grow this team or this group or whatever. And so it's just it can be as simple as meetings. It could be as simple as cutting activities out. But it's really just getting clear on what those activities are that really are going to move the needle.
Right. And really giving that person the information that they need in order to post,
Yes.
important things, clear messaging, right? Give them the
Yes.
tools to do well, and
Yeah,
then making those results measurable, right?
absolutely.
This is what we want. We want more clients. We want more people
Yeah.
coming to us from your social media work, and we can measure that, right? Is it
Yeah.
working? Is it not? And so just that, I think, you know, so many people, and this is, I think, the most common thing that happens with business owners. They think, I've got to have a presence on social media. I don't want to do it. Someone else can do it for
Yeah.
me. And they check the box. Okay,
Yep.
we're posting a few times a week. We're checking that box. But is it working? Is it getting me a
Yeah.
return on the investment, right? Because you're paying your team members to do
Yeah.
this work. Are you reaping the rewards from that?
Yeah. There's two things that I'll often say is that one of the dangers we'll see, especially you just said, there's like we hire out of desperation. So we hire because like I've got to do this, it's got to be done. But then we fire out of perfection. And to me, that's what's so unfair sometimes is like, I just need somebody to come in here and do this. Well, then 3 months later, 6 months later, like that's not your perspective. Like they're not doing this, not doing that. Like you didn't tell them. Like, you were just happy you had a warm body show up.
Right.
And to me, that part isn't. That's what happens a lot of time. And then I think secondly, a lot of this comes down to what I was talking with leaders, like the language of ownership in the sense of like when I really press them, it's like you've got to take the time, and it doesn't have to be hours,
Right.
but you've got to take the time. A lot of times, my goal is to get to where you do it in an hour to clarify. So, what do you want? And and digging there. Sometimes I have to learn that process, and like I said, learn the language of how to do that, because they do know what they want.
Mhm.
It's just that like so many things. It's the discipline of like finding those answers so that when you are hiring somebody, bringing somebody to the team, or changing their position, you're really being fair with like hey, this is what we're looking for. Is this something you think you can do?
Right. I love that phrase. We hire out of desperation and then we fire out of perfection.
Yeah.
That is so so beautiful and
Yeah.
profound and completely unfair, right?
Yeah,
And
it is.
doesn't serve anybody. I can imagine as business owners, we really are so close to our own business. Our business is our baby. And when we're trying to write about it or be strategic about it or make decisions, we really are stuck in that bottle and we're trying to read the label that can only be read from the outside. So I imagine what you do with your clients is ask them the right questions, but also you are able to show up with perspective and a clear lens and knowledge around storytelling. And I think of storytelling as a very powerful filtration device, right? It filters out the noise and it
Yeah.
keeps that beautiful golden thread of
Yeah.
whatever your story is. So that bottle effect, I've yet to meet a business owner who isn't struggling with that in some way,
For sure.
shape, or form. What, tell me what's been your most challenging client situation?
Just it's hard. Usually it's not the client. It's coming to realization of like the team members and like having to walk through those is probably the most challenging is whenever I've had someone, a leader, and we work through this process and they get really clear on like what it is they need from each of their team members. And I sometimes often will give them a warning of like, once you get clear on this, you're probably going to find out there's someone who is not carrying the weight that you thought they were. Maybe there's a lot of activity, a lot of movement, whatever. And on the other side is like you're also going to see there's some people who are carrying probably a bigger weight than you saw. And so I think that always is a tough. That's been the most difficult is walking that through with a leader and then having to like process with them of like maybe it was the leader's fault that they had not communicated fairly or just added something to somebody who was a people pleaser and they kept adding stuff to them and they had overwhelmed them. And so those are always the most difficult part because we live in a culture of more, we work in a culture of more. We're always adding more to our marketing, to our
Yeah.
clarity. It's just the thing is like, oh, they can do that. They can handle that one more thing. And so the toughest situations are always just coming to for a leader looking and saying, okay, this is my expectations, and either I have to change them or I have to have some hard conversations. Um, they're always good conversations, but I say the clarity does not eliminate the tough conversations. It just makes it very clear which ones we're going to have.
Right. And those difficult conversations are, they're no fun, they're hard to have, but when you have clarity, they're so much easier to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think the thing I always like to say there is that um, when a leader really embraces this, there's a confidence that grows of like, I am asking someone to do a fair amount of work. Just in their mind, it's kind of gotten down to like, okay, I understand this is a fair thing to ask. And most leaders, at least I've been blessed to work with, I don't think I would do well with somebody who just wanted to like use and abuse someone, get the most of it, and just trash them. Is I'm just constantly impressed with like the leaders, like they want to do well by their team. They want to build great, strong teams. And a lot of workers really want to work hard. That's the majority of everyone I deal with. And so getting to come alongside and like bridge that gap, and at times maybe, and I've had sometimes where I get to solve that problem that was lingering that we didn't know about. I mean, that is just, that's the best for sure.
That is, it's so fulfilling when we get to kind of play a role in helping a business owner get to that point.
Absolutely.
Um, so when I work with my clients, they're coming to me because they're unclear on their messaging and their website isn't working. They're not totally clear on like how to have the right words to talk about what they
Yeah.
do. They come to me because of external communication. And the kind of invisible strategic byproduct of that is that they get really clear internally
Yeah.
around like what it is they do,
Yeah.
how important it is, you know, that this is like the business owners that I work with, and it sounds like that you work with too, they're here doing the work that they were meant to be doing on the planet. And so it's an honor to get to help them do that better and find more success, more profitability. Um, but you really come at it with your clients from the opposite direction. Like they're coming to you because of more around internal communication, right? And I think that they're very much an overlapping,
Yeah.
deeply overlapping Venn diagram. Tell me, like, what overlaps exist around internal communication versus external communication?
That's an interesting one. Yeah, because I think it is clearly it is internal struggles, internal frustration. You know, a lot of times my experience is though, when we get clear on what it is that we want and we expect, like I just think clarity and simplifying our communication in anywhere, it ends up impacting every other area. And so a lot of times what I see is that when a team gets really clear on what they want to do, it begins to bleed over even into the external of like, so what is it that we're offering? What is the solutions that we're providing? And getting clear on like that story being simple. And that for me, I'm just constantly talking about we're too complex. We have too much going on. Like how to get as simple as possible. And so if a leader is doing that with all of their team member, and that's becoming the language, whatever, what are your roles? What are what are you taking ownership for? Then it just simplifies the amount of things one we're expecting of people to do. And then secondly, I think that begins to bleed over into are we being simple? Are we being focused in how we communicate outwards? And so I can see that. I've never thought about it that way, but I can see that that happens. You and I talked whenever we were looking at my website. It's just it's honestly so embarrassing when you are inside that bottle and like you can't read it, and someone comes from the outside, because you just for me, it's like, I mean, I've read it and known this so well, because I cannot be the hero of the story. I cannot be the hero of the story. And in the middle of this process of doing this makeover process, whatever, I literally was laying in my bed at night. And I was like, I have made my model, my framework, the hero of the story, and I've invited people to join that story. And it was just such a like a wake up call and so frustrating. Um, but I just think we all do it, and that's what the blessing of having someone come in from the outside, just to kind of shine a light and say, I think you might want to like revisit, just how clear this is.
Yes. And yeah, nobody is immune from what I call the bottle effect, right? We're all inside of our own little bottles. So, just to let my listeners know, you and I work
Yeah.
together on your website wireframe, your website messaging. What
Yeah.
was that like for you to go through that process?
Yeah, it was so fun because I've always wanted to do this. I read the books, done a lot of things, and I said before I made a fairly critical error. Looking back, I invested in my website instead of investing in my message. And if I had to do over again, I would do the opposite. Even if I had to hack up a very simple website, I would have done my messaging first. And so, yeah, I think the process was eye-opening because I had done a lot of work with AI to see if I could strengthen it using some of the StoryBrand principles and whatever. And having like the expertise of a guide come in, I knew it was going to be big. It was bigger than I thought. And not because I would say I've rewatched our video a couple times, just like tweaking things and whatever. And I was amazed, not at all the extra stuff you threw in, but just how much was cut away. Like, so how do we say what we have to say here? How are we? You said it several times. You were like, just say it. Just be as clear as possible. There has to be no question what this is. And that to me obviously was so eye-opening, and it really was probably the first time that I'm not saying it's perfect, but that I've looked back and go, okay, I really am talking about their story. I'm making them the hero,
Mm.
um, and yeah, it was just a super cool part of the process to go through that and have different guides helping me along the way.
Right. There's only room for one hero in every story. So if you are making yourself the hero of your own story, you're literally kicking out your potential client. You're
Yeah,
kicking them out of the story. And when we talk about story, we really want to craft a narrative that invites our potential clients into a story with us, a story where we play the guide, or in this situation, you are the guide in the story. You're the strongest character in the story. We don't want to be the hero because
yeah,
we want our clients to be the most important character in our story. Also, the hero role is actually the weakest character in the story, right? We don't know if they're going to succeed or if they're going to fail. So, as consultants or service providers or guides, we don't want to be the hero. It's not in your best interest to be the hero of the
yeah,
story. And I think it's the thing that I honestly I would guess 99% of the websites online, the company or the founder is positioning themselves as the hero of the
yeah,
story. And it's so rewarding to make that shift because it's not hard, right? It
yeah.
can take an hour to shift things around and really position
Hmm.
yourself as the guide. So now that we've like revamped your website, I got this sense that you were going to say like, I'm proud of my website. I'm proud to send people there because I know
Yeah.
it's doing the work for me, right? Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
No, absolutely. I hate this too because I'd reached a point where people are like, "What's your website?" Like, I'm just kind of working on it. I'm improving some things. And I was like, "Why will I not give him my website?" And so yeah, it for sure it is not perfect, but all the way from the top to the bottom. When I just looked at it again this morning, I was like, "I'm good. I'm proud to send people to it. I'm proud of the clarity of the message. I think they could go there. I know they could go there and know what I do. I have a sense of like,
Yes.
am I a good fit for this?" And the one thing I was going to add is like, I feel like the one part for me that could be helpful for maybe your listeners, maybe you can speak to this for a second,
Yeah.
is I always thought about not making myself the hero. And I mean, don't say how long you've been in business, whatever. But I think I had gone to like halfway where like my solution was the hero. And so I'd cut myself out. I didn't talk about myself at all, but my solution was still the hero. And I think that was like the biggest, jump from there. And I think if somebody were to go and look at that website today, what they'd see is like, I don't think you would see the solution as the hero. I think you would see it as inviting, the potential client to be the hero of the story.
Absolutely. I looked at your website earlier today and
Good.
I was like, yes, it's dialed. It's looking
Good.
so good. Yeah, I'm so happy. Yeah. Whether you are the hero or your brand or your program, right? It doesn't matter if that
Yeah.
hero role is filled already, it's taken,
Yeah.
then nobody can really envision what it's like to work with you. And so often when we have a really cool program and we are, that's also our baby. We love our program because it really helps people, but too often we get so excited about it that we talk about it a little bit prematurely, right? We really want to take the time to first establish that connection, create resonance, build trust, show them that we understand their struggles, we care about their success. Once we've done all that, then we can talk about our program because
Yeah.
then they're engaged and they're interested about it. And it's no different than having a quick coffee date with somebody. You're not going to sit down and launch into your program, right? You're going to sit down, ask them how are they doing, what's going on in their world, what are they struggling with, what are they working toward, what do they care about? And then if it's relevant, then we can step in and go, yeah, you know what, I have this program. Or, if we're meeting a new friend, we can say, I read this book. You might find this book helpful. Or I have a great plumber that can solve that problem for you, or whatever
Yes.
it is, right? We need to connect.
Yeah.
Um, so tell us a little bit about, speaking of programs, right? You have a 90-day program, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, tell
Yeah.
tell us, walk me through what that looks like and how that came to fruition.
Yeah, so the program was just built around, so how do we take this role clarity and take it into a team to a point where not only does the leader does it, because that's kind of the ugliest part of HR, job descriptions you do them, they just end up on a shelf. So how do we take this into a team and then really build it into the DNA? So they're coaching and developing their team members. And so that was the heart of it was how can we do that in as tight of a time frame as we can? And so it really is built on three pillars is how it's built up. First, it's looking at that business owner and getting them clear on their role clarity. And
Right.
that's honestly my favorite point because when they highlight the key roles, what the ownership they need to take, what success looks like for themselves, all of a sudden they realize, oh, I got to hand some stuff off. I've got to get this to other people because my business will grow if I'm doing these things. And so that's always like step one is they're learning the framework by doing it for themselves and getting very clear on like what's just most important for my time. Then the second step is we start looking at their, their key team members, their leaders there, and mapping it out for them. And a lot of times that's just them saying a lot of things that were already in their head and just getting it onto paper.
Mm.
And then that last step is coaching them through walking this, rolling it out to their team, communicating it to them, and then building that rhythm. I just start with, it's not every week, but starting with how do we build a monthly rhythm where we're not just putting out fires and solving problems, but you're coaching them, you're making sure they understand what you need, what you're wanting, any problems that are keeping them from doing that. And so by the end of that 90 days, they have their clarity, they have their team's clarity, and they have a plan for how do I move forward? How do I over time build a team that is independent of me and that's strong and healthy.
That's so beautiful. I think as business owners, we're often on the defense, putting out fires, and we're so busy doing that we don't have time to actually be strategic and run our business on the offense, right? And yes, have capacity there to put out fires, but the majority of your time is really as a leader.
Yes.
And guiding people to work with you as a team, and everyone's role is essential in that in supporting that bigger vision. So a couple things. I just want to thank you so much for your time today. It's been so delightful for me to dig in and just kind of have this conversation as fellow StoryBrand lovers.
Yes.
What's one thing that you'd like to share with our listeners as far as like one piece of advice that you'd like to give them?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I've really been focused on lately, and that I've just seen the biggest fruit of, is challenging leaders to delegate ownership for outcomes instead of delegating tasks. A lot of times we've been told like I got to delegate more. I'm either I'm a good delegator or I've got to delegate more. But when I dig in there, we immediately go to delegate task. And what I often will say is like when we're just delegating tasks and things to do, we still carry the ownership for them. So as soon as they're done, it's back on us. And so I become just a master, to-do list person. And the second I'm not feeding something, everything just grinds to a halt. And so a lot of times what I talk about is how do we delegate ownership for outcomes? And when that changes and then they're responsible for the outcome, and there's a language to learn to do that, which isn't complex. If they go to my website, they can see the lead generator on the very bottom there about the 1 sentence formula. So it's easy to do. But when that starts happening, and it takes some time to transition there, I stop being the problem solver. As owners, we stop being the problem solver so that anytime something happens, I have to solve it. And so I begin to pass that ownership. Well, then a lot of times what happens is they're coming to me with potential solutions. Like, here's what I was thinking. Here's what I was, planning. What do you think about this or that? Because they're responsible for that outcome happening. I mean, if it doesn't happen, it's on them. And so that's just been the biggest thing is how do you move from delegating tasks to delegating ownership for outcomes? And when we start doing that simply and easily, and you really can do that with 1 sentence, the formula that I will show there. It's just a game. It's a game changer for the leader, but also for the team member, for the employee.
Oh my gosh, ownership for outcomes. That should be trademarked. I love it.
Somewhere I'm like going as fast as I can. Hopefully it's not already trademarked.
All right, Lee, thank you. Tell us where we can find you. Like if this is resonating with you as a listener, like where can we send our people?
Just rollclarity.co. And if you're interested, I would really encourage you to download that lead generator, the 1 sentence ownership formula. It's just a great start, a great way to think differently about how we delegate.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome.
Is your website turning away potential clients? I can help you turn that around. Book a money-making messaging call with me today, and we'll transform your story into your most powerful sales tool. That's all for this episode of From Click to Client. Don't forget to subscribe and follow. I'm Kris Jones, and I'll see you next time.